Am I audible now?
Namaste.
Namaste from India, Delhi. His Holiness, Namaste.
Namaste, Your Holiness. I am Major General Manoj Kumar Bindal. I am Executive Director, National Institute of Disaster Management, Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. May I seek your blessings to start my welcome address, sir?
Ka. Ka.
Sir. Your Holiness, Namaste, and thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to speak to the world, and especially to the people who are associated with the National Institute of Disaster Management of the Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. His Holiness had sought refuge in India in March 1959. He often says he is the longest guest of India. We are honored and proud that you call yourself the son of India. Wherever His Holiness the Dalai Lama travels within India or abroad, he often speaks on universal responsibility and on a sense of the oneness of humanity, with the aim of creating a more compassionate society. His Holiness believes that warm heartedness, compassionate heart is the key factor for the meaningful life and one's own health and mind. It is the best way, effective way to bring inner strength. It helps bring inner calmness or inner peace. So, with this, we can handle all problems more realistically, more effectively. It also creates a peaceful atmosphere and helps create a more happier society. When asked by people how His Holiness sees himself, he replies that he is a simple Buddhist monk. So I wish to briefly mention about his four commitments of promotion of human values, religious harmony, protection of Tibetan culture and environment, and revival of ancient Indian knowledge. The National Institute of Disaster Management is the premier institute for training and capacity development programs for managing disasters in India and on a national and international basis. Compassion, we have seen, is never more important or more difficult than in disaster situations. Disasters, they trigger a deep sense of vulnerability. In the face of sudden, profound loss, we experience grief, disorientation, and disbelief. Compassion is more than a desire to help. Research finding insights into the nature and mechanisms of compassion and point to the three main elements of cognitive awareness that sufferings exist: emotional resonance, that is empathy, and a commitment to alleviate the suffering, that is action. So disasters pose challenges to all the three elements, and disaster focuses the mind and demand urgent action. In disaster settings, the tools of compassion vary. For example, in the search for survivors, uh, amidst the rubble of an earthquake, the most effective tool of compassion means could be through which the compassion is enacted, maybe a heavy earth mover or likewise. And other times, compassion may best be expressed through human presence, just sitting in silence and holding a hand of someone who has suffered incalculable loss in a disaster. So in disaster, many of those affected depend on compassion for their very survival. At the same time, people who work in disaster relief are motivated and sustained by compassion. So mature compassion also demands self awareness, critical reflection, and honest appraisal of our motivations, rewards, and expectations. So these practices serve as guardrails that prevent us from sliding into the distortions of compassion, which are highlighted with the three critiques. The critiques mainly of pity, self absorption, and preferentialism. So Tibetans, they believe that the Holy Dalai Lama is the manifestation of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, and the patron saint of Tibet. Your Holiness, we would be most grateful if you kindly share your wisdom on compassion and love as to how it forms as the fundamental principle of disaster management. So, with this, sir, I request you to enlighten us with your wisdom, sir. Namaste, sir.
Okay. Oh, firstly, I want to express namaste. That's Indian word. Then next, Tibetan word, Tashdele. So, India, Tibet, something very special relations. You know, it is quite amazing. The 7th century, the Tibetan king, Songtse Gampo, he already have very close relation with Chinese emperor. He actually married with a Chinese princess. However, I think sometimes I half joke, half serious. The 7th century Tibetan king, he certainly enjoy Chinese food, and the Chinese princess beauty. But as far as letter is concerned, you see, he confused the Chinese letter, too complicated. So he, instead of learning Chinese, he decided to create one's own Tibetan, or say, script, copy from Devanagari, Indian, and then alphabet, kaka kanga, cha cha chanya, like that. So, since 7th century, the Tibetan emperor is very much look towards India, in spite very close link through marriage with Chinese prince and Chinese king. So traditionally, we look, India is really the not only sacred land, but sort of learning, full of knowledge. Firstly, of course, Buddha, you see, Indian. He taught Buddha Dharma in India. And then that I usually make a distinction, Pali tradition and Sanskrit tradition. The Pali tradition, the Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma, you see, these, you see, use Pali language in order to learn Buddha Dharma. But then Indian, I think, Thirukavare,
8th century.
8th century. You see, he invited at that time, I think, most famous, best, well-known scholar of Nalanda, Shantarakshita. So, when Shantarakshita reached Tibet, you see, he expressed, since you have your own language, so these sort of traditionally Indian knowledge should translate into Tibetan script. Some scholar, even you say, have the impression the Shantarakshita himself say, try to study a Tibetan script. So since he advised, since 7th century, you have already your own script. So now better to translate. So eventually, translation, you see, took place, and then altogether 100 volume about Buddha's own word, and about 200 volumes, the commentary made by Indian master like Nagarjuna, Aryasanga. So the Sanskrit tradition, and particularly like Nagarjuna sort of thinking, not just a faith, always investigate. Buddha himself, you see, told his follower, "Oh, my follower should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather investigation." Buddha himself, you see, start open question. So then Nalanda institution eventually, you see, developed. Then in Nalanda institution, we very much emphasis study logic, Parman. So, since we, as Shantarakshita introduced he himself, great logician. His writing, some logic. So still we use. So therefore, now today, I really found, Tibetan tradition, looks more emphasis on investigation, intellectual level, not just faith. Even Buddha's own word, Buddha's own sort of concept. If we investigate some contradiction, then such as Indian master, we Tibetan also, reject Buddha's own certain sort of also the explanation. So we very much sort of emphasis reasoning. So therefore, eventually, I notice Tibetan Buddhism very much use reason and because reasoning consider important, so Parmana Vurtika Karika or reasoning, logic, book about logic. Then Madhyamika Nagarjuna, and then most important sort of text wrote by Chandrakirti, top scholar. I myself, on my table, on Chandrakirti's one sort of writing about explanation or commentary about his own writing, Madhyamika Mulakarika.
Madhyamika Avatar.
Ka.
Avatar.
Madhyamika
Avatar.
Oh, Madhyamika Avatar. I almost daily some portion reading. It is quite, quite strange in that his sort of writing. He mentioned some Indian past master, such as Bosubandh and Dhammakirti, Dignac. He mentioned, although some respect, but their teaching not very sophisticated. So we have right to reject, these Indian masters sort of writing. It is quite amazing. Anyway, it shows emphasis on reason rather than faith. So, as I mentioned earlier, we firstly develop our own script, and then most of Indian important text translated. So we Tibetan from childhood, you see, we study, you see, these important texts. Myself, I think 6-7 year old, I already start to learn by heart some of these texts. Although at that time, I were very reluctant. I prefer to play outside rather than, you see, sitting with teacher. But then compulsory, you see, 1 hour morning, 1 hour evening with teacher, I learn. At that time, you see, not much explanation, but root text learned by heart. Then I think every day some portion recite in front of teacher. Then gradually, you see, learning or explanation. So really wonderful, really wonderful. So now, I come from very remote place, northeast Tibet. Then recognized as a Dalai Lama's reincarnation. So then reach Lhasa, and with my tutor, I learned these things. Eventually, I found very useful, very, very useful. And since we very much based on logical approach, so now today, I have no difficulties to discuss with modern scientists. Since we always investigation, reasoning, not just a faith. So now I have number of scientists who really loves me and show their own certain knowledge in certain field, such as psychology or emotion. The scientists mainly come from West, so they have interest in these things, but not much material. Only Indian sources, these sort of subject. So therefore, the last now a few decades, I have several occasions discussion with scientists about mind, about emotion, and how to change our emotion, how to control destructive emotions such as anger. So many people consider me I'm scientist. So I proud I'm combine science and Buddhist philosophy. So I remember Karsa, Senrikudi Karsa.
Tibettv.
Ka.
Raja Ramana.
Richard Davidson.
Tibettv.
Ribe.
Raja Ramana.
Mare.
Raja Ramana.
And America.
Tibettv.
Ka.
Richie Davidson.
Oh. Mare.
Davidson.
Di Kong.
Francesco
Ka.
Varela Marwa.
Ko Nangshu Drisha Yedu
Now,
Karsa Verala. He's scientist. At the same time, very sort of respect or close with Buddhist thought. So when we discuss something, when he explained about something Buddhism, and he mentioned, now I wear Buddhist hat. Then when we start discuss about science, then he now I'm talking with head of scientist, like that. So I also, some extent, I think, like him, half Buddhist scholar, Buddhist monk, and meantime, very much sort of interest about science, about scientific sort of research work. So, last few decades, I have serious discussion with scientists, like that. So all this, the Indian tradition. Now I very much sort of eager. Now this country, since British ruler come, India pay more attention about modern education and English, much neglect about ancient Yoga knowledge and Sanskrit. So therefore, now time come, the Indian scholar, or at least some university, now should try to combination modern education with ancient Indian knowledge. And it really can make significant contribution regarding education or knowledge on this planet. So, I really want to discuss some Indian universities how to combine ancient Indian knowledge and modern knowledge combined. India, strictly secular way, not religious thing. So religion, personal matter. These academic sort of knowledge is sort of common for even for whole world. So therefore, I very much eager some discussion with some Indian university combination, modern education and ancient Indian knowledge, like that. So now, some questions.
disaster de chimbo de chumbe kabla ta khud disaster na lo ta lega chinge zo khud cha de de chesa di kabla mi ka nye da dunya shu shu go res di na lo ningji da chamse la di ke chimbo khande cha de res di cha le di to ne
Any, how say, human action, whether can be positive, constructive, or not, much depend on motivation. So compassionate motivation is a key factor. So now, I think India is second most populated nation and very peaceful, religious harmony. So these ancient 1,000-year-old India's tradition, Karuna, Ahimsa. So now, important modern education and ancient Indian thought, a little bit sort of, also the distance. Now this should combine, I feel, as an academic subject, not religious subject. Okay. I really feel in previous century, Mahatma Gandhi ji really show world India's ahimsa. He himself, you see, practice, and many part of the world really, you see, people who extremely sort of, what say, admire Mahatma Gandhi ji and follow, or say, his non-violent practice. For example, South Africa, Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu, and in America, Martin Luther King, so on. You see, many people really, you see, convinced the India's 1,000-year-old ahimsa is really, or say, not only morally right, but practically also, you see, very useful. So now we Indian, I myself consider, because now most part of my life spent here in India and always talk Indian thought, so I consider I'm Indian. So I really feel proud. So politically become refugee. But Pandit Nehru give me this place is my home. So I remember at that time, political officer, Pant, when we, you see, shift from Mussoorie to here, Mussoorie was for communication, Delhi, much easier. So we perform Mussoorie. But then, as a political officer, Pant, one time in my Sao Ashram, this is my residence. And in the south, there are some small office. So I met Pant. He told me, from this place, Dalai Lama's message can reach all over the world. He expressed So at that time, I felt this is a little bit, how should I say,
Exaggeration.
ka-
Exaggeration.
exaggeration. Then time passes. It seems now from this place, my message, I think all over the world, including China, and of course traditionally Mongolia, some of these republic of Russia, traditionally they follow of Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So now, number of people, you see, consider me almost best teacher about this ancient Indian knowledge. So I really feel proud and feel very happy to serve ancient Indian knowledge in order to develop peaceful world through peaceful mind. So now I totally dedicated, you see, how much I can make contribution, humanity, and including ecology, how to develop peaceful sort of ecology and also people. Now, everybody, you see, want peace, including animal. So in the last few centuries, fighting, killing, and spent a lot of money making weapon. They're outdated. Now we should pay more attention about our inner peace through education, not necessarily through prayer, but through knowledge, reasoning. So now, some questions.
Thank you very much, Your Holiness. I am Professor Santosh Kumar from the National Institute of Disaster Management, born in Bodh Gaya. Holiness, you mentioned about this investigation, faith vis-a-vis investigation. And currently, Your Holiness, we have seen the pandemic misery, and all over the world, the disasters are happening. Building resilience of people, society, economy, and the faith is a challenge. In this context, we wish to have your views. First question from Professor Vinod Menon. Professor Vinod Menon is the member of the National Disaster Management, former member of the National Disaster Management Authority, Government of India. So, Professor Menon, can you ask your question to His Holiness?
Your Holiness, in an increasingly polarizing world in which faith in one's religion is becoming divisive rather than using faith as a unifier, when the whole world has witnessed the COVID pandemic, in the past 20 months, millions of people are grieving the loss of their loved ones due to COVID pandemic. My question is, how can compassion be made a driving force for everybody on this planet?
True. Even within Tibetan, you see, we make some distinction due to different color of head. Oh. So these lost real meaning of Dharma, religion. Religion must, you see, also the instrument to develop inner peace. And with that, respect all religions which talking about Karuna. And different philosophical view, there are differences, but these are the method. The main message, main aim is genuine Karuna. So, for example, Indian many different tradition with different philosophy, but all the main aim is the philosophy, different sort of tradition is the method. Main message is Karuna. So, look whole world and different religion, different philosophy, but all these are method to bring inner peace, to increase Karuna. So, some say there is God, and God is the creation of all religion created by God. But the main message is Karuna. Then, like Jainism and Buddhism, you see, no concept of creator, but self-creation. We also, you see, the main practice is Karuna. So, different religious tradition, these are method. Real message, all different religion, same. Even you see a non-believer, whether accept religion or not, they also appreciate warm-heartedness, Karuna. On this planet, now the very concept of socialism or democracy, very much related with Karuna. And previously, king and queen control. But then, democracy. And also the concept of socialism. Public, particularly poor people, you see, their right is more important than few individuals or the privilege. So these all, you see, based on Karuna. So, religious harmony, if we go real sort of meaning of Dharma, then Karuna, Ahimsa, then all different religious traditions are same. Some my Christian friend, very close friend of mine, so he teasing me, he after death, he easily go to heaven. And then he teasing me, you go something different place. Because you see, not believe God. So he teasing me like that. So it is true. Oh. Then later, I expressed this to some of my friends. Then many friends say, oh, they are very happy with you, even heaven. No, even hell, no problem. Okay. So now we should take essence of Dharma. It's Karuna and Ahimsa. But sometimes we just, as I mentioned earlier, Tibetan case also you see much also they make differences about color of head. These are narrow-minded, silly. We must take the essence that all religion, same message, and use different philosophy. Okay. Next.
Thank you, Your Holiness. You also spoke about the combination of science and modern this education with the ancient education. We have another question from the scientist, Indian Director General of Indian Meteorological Department, Dr. Mrityunjay Mahapatra. Please go ahead, Dr. Mrityunjay Mahapatra, for asking question with Your Holiness.
Namaste, Your Holiness. My question is, how should human beings live at peace with their surroundings while balancing with the comforts of modern day technology?
Now, if we think more broadly, then all these technology serving to humanity. So we want a happy environment, happy world, stable climate. So short-sighted and so-called specialist only technology, then you see they put also too much emphasis just to see some technology, in spite some effect about environment, these things. So these lacking holistic view, or just your profession, pick up one thing, and then technology, don't care what side effect. So now, as I mentioned earlier, we should have more holistic view. That is important. Then certainly now climate condition, very important to us. This is really questioning our own also the human life. Therefore, we should pay more attention about environment. Okay.
Your Holiness, thank you very much. In your book, Art of Happiness, you talked about negative compassion and the positive compassion. In this context, we have a question from Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, who is the chief of the disaster risk reduction of UN SCAP, head of the Asia and the West Asia division. Dr. Sanjay Srivastav, please take this opportunity to ask this question to Your Holiness.
Your Holiness, Namaste, Pranam. It's my great fortune to talk to you face to face, one to one. It's a great fortune. It's a great opportunity. Holiness, I am also a scientist by my profession, by my qualification, and spent all through my professional journey with science. What I find difficult, despite all science around, we face unacceptable injustice and humiliations often. How can we respond compassionately these harmful actions? Holiness.
That I also have some experience. Even Chairman Mao Zedong, we become very close friend. And at that time, some occasion, even I want to join Chinese Communist Party. I love, you see, the socialism and Communist Party totally against, how to say, the
Inequality.
ka,
Inequality soon.
in the society.
No. Inequality.
You see, too much sort of also suppression, things like that. So now we also suffer under Chinese communist control. But time passes, their thinking also now changing. So I always say more sense of concern about these people, you see, who look down religious person and criticize. Now things are changing. Now last almost 60 years. Now among the Chinese, including Chinese party member, you see, thinking, you see, much change. Previously, they considered me as some kind of reactionary. But now, number of Chinese really also try to follow my thinking and praising me. So some Chinese scholar, after they saw some of our publication about Buddhist science, Buddhist philosophy, many Chinese scholars, they very much appreciate. So now things are changing. The other side look down us, but we simply kept our own philosophy, our own sort of tradition, and telling. So now, these people who totally against Tibetan Buddhist tradition now changing. So logically, nobody against is a karuna and ahimsa. Look at the world, lack of karuna and a lot of problem. Now, future world, if you want peace, happy world, and then only way is practice karuna, ahimsa, or based on these, also the reason, not just a faith, like that. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. You talked about as a kind of a positive compassion. And we have a question on the faith and investigation from Mr. Hemant Kumar. He's based at Canada as the organization called Engage First Advising Government. Mr. Hemant Kumar, the floor is yours.
Your Holiness, namaste and our best wishes from Canada. Your energy is reaching us, and what a blessing it is to be in your presence. Your Holiness, as human beings, we all turn to our faith, our religion in our moments of misery and pain for comfort. When events like a pandemic happen where the whole of humanity is affected, my question, Your Holiness, is what should be the role of faith-based healing in recovering from such a big impact? Thank you, Your Holiness.
As I already briefly mentioned, religious tradition, you see, just my religion, our religion, not thinking seriously about real message of religion. So religion also sometimes looks like party, my religion, their religion, and then fighting. So now we should look the real meaning of dharma is karuna. So you see, no basis of shoshandi, discrimination. All dharma carry message of karuna and ahimsa. So these, unfortunately, sometimes in the name of religion, fighting, they are not paying more attention or practice of karuna rather than my religion, my religion. So they do not know the real meaning, real message of religion. That is karuna and ahimsa. So now, we should, we should show the world religious harmony. India, as I mentioned earlier, one of the example. Different philosophy, different tradition, but all carry, you see, practice of karuna, ahimsa. I think India, one living example. All different religious traditions live together. At the scholar level, some argument, purely academic sort of level, that's okay. But then, too much emotion, my religion, their religion, is not actually not follow genuine religious faith. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We have a question related to humility versus materialistic world. And in building resilience, we have question from Sri Hitesh Kotak, who is the CEO of the Munich Re company, based in Germany, and he's based there. So Hitesh Kotak, you are invited to ask your question to His Holiness.
Pranam His Holiness, Tashi Delek. While the government and various agencies are financially supporting the people who get affected to rehabilitate them physically, my question, Your Holiness, to you is how important is the emotional rehabilitation aspect here and what can be done to achieve it even better? Thank you, sir.
I already mentioned in our existing education, we should include education about how to develop peace of mind and karuna as a secular subject. As I already mentioned, here in India, existing modern education not pay much attention about our inner peace. So, people or organization who helping poor people, or not just give money, but the overall, you see, promote karuna and ahimsa, and then these things can change. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. It's often talked about the compassion and love together. Is the same or the different? But we have question related to this from Dr. Anshu Sharma, who is the co-founder of Seeds India. Anshu, can you ask your question to His Holiness?
Your Holiness, we are talking about compassion and love in disaster management today. But when in a disaster relief situation, sometimes these qualities make the life of a humanitarian worker very difficult. When you're surrounded with people in extreme suffering, you yourself can start breaking down, though you can't show it. So what practice would you recommend for aid workers so that we can do our work with compassion, but also without getting affected ourselves?
As I already mentioned, in our society, although you see, when we were child, you see, we very much appreciate about mother's kindness, karuna. Without that, you can't survive. But then once we join education, no longer much talk about karuna. And karuna, people consider something religious matter. No, now I think with help of some scientist, psychologist, how to keep peace of mind, even a student, karuna, very important. So these become our sort of normal way to teach or to understand the practice of karuna is something really benefit oneself. So then these people who really helping people who really find difficulties, you see really feel satisfaction I really implement Karuna. Okay. So these, I think, are basic concept. The value of Karuna. So basic sort of understanding about value of Karuna, and through education. So how to effect Karuna or peace of mind. With peace of mind, healthy body. These, you see, we should practice of Karuna, next life or heaven, not talking these things, but day to day, how to develop a peaceful person. And some scientists say we are social animal. So any social animal, there's a sense of community and helping each other is almost nature. So we are social animal. So our existence very much related with Karuna, or sense of interest for group like that. Okay. So I really admire, you see, people or organization who really helping poor people, and particularly helping where community or community facing due to dry or due to too much rain. We beside our the usual sort of illness or old age. Beside that, now natural disaster also now increasing. So helping each other, very necessary. Okay.
Professor Santosh? You're not audible, so I will intervene. Sir, you have rightly said about compassion being inculcated, being imbibed through our education system. Sometimes we talk about pity and compassion, and we start saying when you work from a position of solidarity, you have more of pity in you than compassion. So on similar lines, we have Professor Ravi Sinha, who's from Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Bombay, will be asking a question related to this. May I request Professor Ravi Sinha to go ahead, please?
Thank you, Your Holiness. It is such a privilege to be in your august presence. In dealing with disasters, questions are often asked that are we acting from a place of solidarity, interdependence, compassion, and love when we deal with any kind of disasters? So, in this context, Your Holiness, I would like to know from you why is motivation important in dealing with the aftermath of a disaster?
So again, when you carry some work, helping or people who really passing through difficulties about nature disaster or something, not as just a profession or name, with sincere karuna. They also same human brothers, sisters. We are same. I want a peaceful, happy life they also have every right, peace. So they're facing some additional problem, some natural disaster. We must pay more attention. The karuna actually is a real active karuna. It's very important. Karuna implement through action. That's when these difficulties happen, that there's a very good opportunity to carry action of karuna. Okay.
His Holiness, we have Major General Bindal. Would you like to ask this question, or
No. If you're online, please go ahead.
So, His Holiness, this is the question which is coming of this from Dr. Sandhya Ramanathan from New Zealand. And I would request Dr. Sandhya to kindly ask your question in brief. Dr. Sandhya?
Yeah. Pranam, Your Holiness, and a warm kia ora from Auckland, New Zealand. I have two questions for you today. My first question is on suffering. Many people during this pandemic have suffered tragic and untimely losses of loved ones, and they are feeling a lot of anger alongside their grief. How does Your Holiness teach love and compassion to help these people move forward in their daily lives and, cope with that grief? My second question, you've covered a little bit of, but it's about compassion. As healthcare workers during this pandemic, we have had to find a lot of compassion and love within ourselves to be able to continue to fulfill our duty of alleviating suffering in others. My question to you is, how do we maintain that compassion without becoming fatigued so that we can continue to fulfill our duty? Thank you.
Thank you. Someone who getting difficulties or suffering due to certain relative passed away, then as I mentioned earlier, we are social animal. So you see people who lost their own relative due to that, too much worry, too much sadness, and then we should learn. Now this is the example. Now time come, we are social animal. Whatever way I help them, that is the best opportunity. So the circumstances, people, some passing through difficulties, that is the best opportunity to implement karuna. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We have a very important question on adversity, misery, and pain from Dr. Madhavi from Sri Lanka, has been the former UN employee. Dr. Madhavi, please ask your question to Your Holiness.
Your Holiness, my question is, what are the ways to be mindful and focus on the present moment in an adverse situation like a disaster, specifically if you are an affected person?
Now, this question not very clear. In any case, I already mentioned when we passing through difficulties, then one individual passing through some difficulties, then look your neighbors. Also, you see, we are same. So, according to my own experience, now some of my also the neighbor should not passing through that kind of suffering or difficulties. So, when we saw some unfortunate, some difficult situation, that should use increasing force, inner force of karuna, rather than demoralize. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. We have last two questions. One from Dr. V.S. Prakash, formerly Director of Drought Monitoring Center of Karnataka. Dr. V.S. Prakash.
Hello. Pranam, His Holiness. So we are all blessed to be with you and talk to you, listen to you. How science and technology can be a tool in promoting compassion and love? This is my question, Your Holiness.
Yes, previously, technologists or people and science, they not much pay attention about our inner peace. They consider their own profession like that. So now our thinking become more wider. So they experience about our inner peace, deeper understanding, then modern science, particularly modern science about our brain or emotion. And that technology supposed to be serving scientists. So therefore, these are depend on wider sort of understanding about our problem. So ultimately, emotion is very important. So in order to achieve peaceful emotion, no matter sophisticated technology, but ultimately peace of mind is the key factor. So the peace of mind, as I already mentioned, the more karuna there, automatically peace come. Anger, fear is the key factor to bring anxiety, anger. So opposite karuna brings patience And then also, you see, realistic approach. As Shantandeva say, if there is, when we face some problem, if there is a way to overcome, then make effort. If the situation is such, no way to overcome, then no use, much worry. Like that. So very realistic and a very scientific way of thinking. I lost my own country, freedom, lot of destruction. But then, whether can overcome these problems, thinking, try my sort of approach regarding Tibet, middle way of approach. Not so out of anger or Tibetan independence like that. So we should, Chinese also, human brothers, sisters, and traditionally Buddhist country. So nowadays, more and more Chinese now really showing interest about Buddhism. So my middle way approach is we remain part of People's Republic of China. At the same time, our unique cultural heritage must preserve. And eventually that even millions of Chinese also get benefit. So, you see, thinking more wider way and then very helpful to reduce frustration, anger, fear. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. This is the last question from Ms. Bighetti from Italy, former United Nations professional. Bighetti, the floor is yours with Your Holiness.
Thank you very much. Namaste. Your Holiness, traditional knowledge has shown that people in the past were better, they were connected better with nature and they could better prevent themselves from any type of disasters. So my question, Your Holiness, is can you please share with us how, the practice of love and compassion can be used to reconnect ourselves to nature and to be better protected against any type of disasters, because I think we lost this connection with nature.
Now, basically, we 7 billion human beings, we all same emotion, you see, same desire, be happy life. So, no differences in nationality or continent, we all same. So I always talk oneness of 7 billion human beings. So when thinking these lines, the real peaceful world is interest for everyone. Now including healthy environment. No longer, you see, thinking my nation is my continent. No, about 7 billion human beings. as a human brothers, sisters. So, thinking these lines is one way very helpful to reduce your own sort of suffering of your own community. When you think about humanity, you see your mind become much more wider. So small problem, not really significant. So, I think one example, I myself, refugee, lost our own country and a lot of destruction. Here in India, I'm the guest of Indian government, very happy. I think every people who saw me, who met me, they all, you see, have the feeling, smiling Dalai Lama, not angry face. So, practice of karuna and belief, ahimsa, really bring inner peace. So the proper way expression of inner peace is genuine smile, not artificial smile or diplomatic smile. Genuine sort of expression of oneness of humanity. We all human beings are actually our brothers, sisters. We have to live together on this planet. Okay.
Thank you, Your Holiness. Before I give the formal vote of thanks, I request Major General Bindal to say a few words to you. General Bindal.
Thank you, Your Holiness. It was a great listening to your teachings for last 1 hour, and 4 important messages among many others which I would like to highlight before we give the vote of thanks. Is first, you have brought about that and explained to us that essence of all religions, all dharma is karuna and ahimsa, even though the philosophical ways and methods are different. So that is one lesson we need to imbibe in our life. And second is how you have spoken about education being the main factor to develop peace of mind and karuna. And we must inculcate and develop this a peaceful person right from the educational system, so that it becomes a part of our behavior, it becomes a part of our culture. And we are really thankful for your steps in towards combination of modern education with ancient Indian education and knowledge, which I think will go a long way in developing new philosophies, which will be very useful for this materialistic world which is coming. And finally, you ended by talking about oneness of humanity, which you have been propagating throughout, and with millions of people have been benefiting from this wonderful teaching of yours, Your Holiness. And we are really grateful that you came to our program of National Institute of Disaster Management and gave us such wonderful teachings, which we'll carry with us throughout. Thank you so much, sir, and namaste.
General Bindal, I would like to express my gratitude and to Your Holiness. I'm extremely honored and delighted for giving me and my institution, National Institute of Disaster Management, Government of India, the blessed opportunity to have a conversation with Your Holiness. Compassion and love are the core of human existence for peacetime and even more important in distress and disaster time as you spoke about, that you are living after leaving your country in India, and how quietly and peacefully you are living. During the pandemic, almost all 8+ billion people across the globe have experienced it. Your Holiness, I have been listening to you live since my childhood at Bodh Gaya, but the essence of talk did not go into my DNA completely, but always felt connected. Today, I feel privileged that your blessings came in the form of the talk on compassion and love, with disaster, misery, pain, attachment, and detachment. Nothing is permanent, so will the pain and misery too. His Holiness deliberations on compassion, love, empathy, happiness, joy, karma, corona in the context of disaster management has been extremely insightful and pragmatic for taking it forward, both the policy planning and also practicing disaster managers. It is the most fundamental building of human relations. I can assure Your Holiness that with your blessings, we at NIDM and also with other professionals who have had the pleasure of listening to you in India and across the globe, would like to bring it into the DNA of our personal and professional domains. We, on behalf of everyone, extend our special regards and heartfelt thanks for enlightening us directly by taking special time off for all of us. We are grateful indeed and indebted to Your Holiness. We express our gratitude to your secretary, who had helped in accepting our request and facilitating the program with all his team members. I express my gratitude to all the delegates who have attended the program and listened to His Holiness. I am also thankful to all the delegates participating from different parts of the world and also asked questions. Last but not the least, I express my heartfelt thanks to Major General Bindal for supporting such initiative, and my team, Mr. Vivek and Mr. Ali, for making it successful event, and with all the team members of media of His Holiness office. With the permission of Your Holiness, while seeking your blessings, we announce the closure of program. If His Holiness has nothing to say as a last word for this program as a blessings, His Holiness, over to you for the last word for blessings. We all are seeking to all of you. Thank you very much, Your Holiness.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very happy having this opportunity to exchange your own tradition, ahimsa, karuna. Really now, as I mentioned earlier, world need. This not empty word. I practice that. And immense benefit. So, according to my own experience, you see, share with other people. And I approach these secular way. Non-believer, even people who very much sort of against religion, okay, that's their personal sort of matter. But anyway, we really want the inner peace. For that, practice of karuna is very essential. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you. Josite, thank you very much. We are delighted.
Okay.
We feel blessed.